Hello. You may ask yourself, since that's the title of the video, where are the young American people immigrating to? You know? Where are they immigrating? Where are they going? You know? Well, either one of three places, or four if you want to include the special one, but generally, it's either a Scandinavian country, some place in, like, Eastern Asia, or anything that has to do with, like, Latin America, to an extent. You know? But what specific countries, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you asked that, too. Most of the people, at least done by the research of who's like actually immigrating, not just traveling, you know? It's not like it was in, say, I don't know, in the 1990s. And back then, you know, after the whole USSR stuff, basically you had Americans traveling everywhere, but not living there necessarily, right? You know? Like, yeah, there might have been a few immigrants, but it was whatever. But then you had the Russians, and Russians, in that time, Russians were basically just, like, Russian tourists were basically just American tourists without money, okay? And I know that because I know people who worked in the travel industry from that era, and that's what they say, you know? Like, I wasn't somebody who worked back then, so I have no idea what that was like, either than what they tell me, okay? So I just have to trust on their word, because that's what they say all the fucking time, you know? But, anyway, on to, the point of immigration. So, where is the young American population? You may be watching this in a foreign country, or a country on the other side of the world that's not USA, wondering, are they traveling to my country? Are they traveling to one of my relatives' countries? Something like that? Where are they going? Well, if you want to get specific, it's Canada, Mexico, places like that. But there's also stuff like, maybe some of Brazil or Argentina. But generally speaking, it's most likely going to be Mexico or Canada. And then also the UK, and Germany, and France, and Spain, you know, that kind of thing. And I know a few who went to the Switzerland, you know, that kind of thing. But they're most likely going to travel to fucking Scandinavia, if I'm being realistic. I mean, yeah, there's England or whatever, but let's be realistic here, people. If you want to see, like, in a true American immigrant assimilate into a culture, bring them to a Scandinavian country, and all of a sudden they'll turn into like a goddamn, you know, winter pagan, you know? Like, that's what happens to them. Or they just become, like, really, really Catholic all of a sudden. You know? Like, that's just what happens. And I know I didn't mean to get religion into it, but, like, it's kind of hard to deny it, considering that this is the world that we are talking about. Now, off of Europe, and we're going to go to Asia, specifically East Asia. And the countries I would say that they're probably most immigrating to is, for some reason, China, and then you have, obviously, Japan is a big one, and then you have Korea, South Korea to be specific. You know, I don't think most Americans would be traveling to North Korea. No offense to North Korea, I'm just being realistic because, you know, they're probably bigger fans of South Korea for whatever reason, okay? You can blame it on capitalism all you want, but it just is what it is, alright? Okay? Okay, and then you go over to Africa, and the only real country you can really say that people are truly immigrating to, at least if you're talking purely in like American youth, that would be South Africa. The country called South Africa. That country is basically the ideal sort of country of Africa. Unless you're from Morocco, then they kick you out. But, okay, you go over there, and it's completely foreign. And by the way, did you know that the human species is indigenous to Africa, specifically what is now known as South Africa? Like, for almost like a quarter to half of human history just happened in that part of Africa alone. Okay? That's how long ago that shit is. Alright? Like, their first civilization, their first society was the first society, was the first civilization, was the first tribe, you know? Literally. You know, they are the true, like, indigenous natives. You know? They're not like, oh, my ancestors traveled here thousands of years before you did. No, they were there by default. By genetic default, pretty much. If you mean, like, humans being humans. You know, as long as that has happened. You know? That kind of thing. But if you considered evolution, then yeah, I guess we're all immigrants. You know? Technically speaking. Well, not technically speaking. If you go, far back enough. You know, enough generations or so. Anyway, that's Africa. Now, let's go on to Oceania. Oceania. What countries are they traveling to there? What, Papua New Guinea? No, motherfucker. It's mostly just New Zealand and Australia, because of course it is. And then there's certain states of Australia that are just living hell. Or should I say the whole country. That's why everybody for some reason lives on like the ocean side of the country. I don't really consider Australia to be a continent. You know, I consider it to be on a continent with New Zealand. That's why I call it Oceania. But like, let's be for real. Do you think a New Zealander would really want to call themselves an Australian? You know? Like, if they're, like, living there and they're, like, super patriotic and they're just really into their own particular nation. You know, they're just super duper pro New Zealander, you know? But just remember, being anti-Australian does not correlate, or being anti-New Zealander doesn't necessarily mean you're pro whatever nation you're from, okay? That's not how that works. You know, you don't see everybody going, oh yeah, let me enter in the Greek North Macedonian beef. You know, like, it gets stranger and stranger every day. You know, like the more we learn about it. Like historically, up until like a few decades ago, we were in the dark on society, culture, politics, religion, you name it. Sports. You know, yeah, you had the occasional recording or some guy who'd like to take pictures a lot. But back then, that was a hobby. That was a thing. Now it's just kind of like a part of life. But even then, we're only just now starting to understand it all. You know? We had our digital renaissance, so to speak, and we're still technically in it, especially for less technology efficient or technology advanced countries, you know, such as in Africa or Asia, you know, or some parts of Europe, you know, because you can't have Europe without the Balkans, because they do a lot of shit, okay? They do a lot of shit, no offense. let's just be real. That's the part of the continent where every country is like split up into a bunch of different little ones, and then they complain about it for like 2,000 years, and then they have another war over it because, man, you have slight differences, or you're too similar. You're too similar to my group. We need to separate. We need to separate. You know? And then you get places like Kosovo. But that's enough for the European part. I would say the Americas equivalent to the Balkans would be South America, okay? Because, yeah, there's the whole Portuguese versus Spanish or whatever, but it's also like Mexican against non-Mexican. I don't know why I said it like that, but basically that's how they describe it. You know, that's how a lot of people describe it. That kind of thing. But it is kind of funny that you'll get like celebrities like what's his name? I keep forgetting his name. I know he's a soccer player. He's a Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. That guy. He's a special fella. You know, people thought he was Brazilian at one point. And some people still think he is. He's not. He's Portuguese. That's his nationality. You know? I'm not sure if he was born and raised in Portugal, but one thing's for sure, that's his nationality. But I think it's kind of obvious why that's a bit confusing. Because, I mean, when you speak Portuguese, at least in this part of the world, they're going to associate it with Brazil. Alright? Or maybe that one African nation. DR Congo. Okay? Dominican Republic of the Congo, I think it's called. I'm not sure. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong when it comes to the African stuff. Anyway, or any of this that I said in this video. And what does this all have to do with the Americans? Well, it changes what travels. Not just, you know, for the American youth, or old, if you will, but also other countries. You know, there are countries who immigrate to this country. You know, that kind of thing. There are many people who are from, say, France, who immigrate to, I don't know, Peru, perhaps. It happened before, can happen again, but still, okay? We don't want another Quebec. It's good as it is, alright? We don't need more propaganda on the window, but French style, okay? But don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on the French. I'm not trying to hate on the French. They do it to themselves during protests anyway, so it's not like I'm going after them for it. Okay? I'm neither hating nor loving them. Okay? I'm treating them like they're, well, French. So, yeah, there's that as well. And also, most people in the U.S., when they immigrate, what they really just mean is they move to another fucking state, okay? They get out of, like, fucking Hawaii, Alaska, you know, Florida, California bullshit, and they go move to a state like, I don't know, Texas, Michigan, North Dakota, fucking, Ohio, Indiana, perhaps Missouri. Look, I know that's a controversial one, considering the whole debate, or whatever you want to call it, but still, it's fine. But then there was Minnesota. But we are in good terms, okay? Or at least we're trying to be. And there are many states. There's 50 U.S. states. At least time of recording, time of releasing this video. So, yeah. If, I don't know, Greenland becomes the 51st state, woohoo! I guess we get more national debt. Yeah, more national debt for a country we were trying to immigrate to. Now we can't immigrate anywhere because it's all America to me now. It's all America, bro. I don't know. Anyway, that's pretty much all I gotta really say. If you have any thoughts, anything I may have left out, anything you want me to talk about next, or anything you want to bring up, maybe something completely unrelated, I don't know, go ahead and put that in the YouTube comments, the YouTubes of commenting. Or you could perhaps make your own YouTube video, but you're too chicken probably. But I don't know. I'm not you, you're not me. I'm not your friend, neither I'm your enemy. Okay? I am not your enemy either. Right? And I am definitely not your acquaintance. Okay? You make me talk funny. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to end this video, and again, I'm going to remind you, anything you want to comment, if you're going to comment, you can comment anything you want, okay? I believe in freedom of speech. Alright? As long as it's like, you know, something to comment. You know, something that you want to comment. You're not just going, you know, like you press the button and you're not thinking about it, you know, that kind of thing. It's more of like you think about it and it's like, I don't know, what you thought about the video, what you think I should make next, or maybe, I don't know, again, maybe it's something unrelated, who knows? Anyway, yeah, after all of that said and done, I'm going to end this video. Bye.